and welcome back to episode number 75 of Inside the Vault, a Carolina Panthers podcast. I am your host, Ryan Smith, and tonight with me, I have the other side of the OG Media crew with me. You know him as part of the OG Media, formerly of WREL 99.9, and now doing his thing with Joe Giglio, his partner in crime. Let me welcome to the podcast, Joe Ovies. Joe, how's it going?
Hey Ryan, what's going on, man? It's good seeing you at ACC kickoff a couple weeks ago.
Yes, kickoff. Yes. Yeah. And now we're here discussing Panthers because that's what we do as August turns to September and the season's right around the corner. That's just
It's
what we do.
it's funny. We were there for ACC purposes, but it was interesting. There was it coincided with the start of Panthers camp, and it was interesting to see the amount of buzz that was kind of. I mean, it might have helped that you had Frank Reich there, who's
a little bit.
Now he's the head coach at Stanford. It
Yeah.
might have, you got Ron Rivera there as the general manager of Cal as well. That coincides with the 10-year anniversary of that incredible Cam Newton season that went to the Super Bowl and lost. But I mean, that kind of indicates where the Panthers are right now, where you're celebrating 10-year anniversaries of a Super Bowl that was one of the worst experiences I've ever watched on television. So I get it, but they were in the Super Bowl,
they were in the Super Bowl. No one, I mean, yeah,
right.
I mean, and then Bill Belichick was there as well. You know that you thought that Donald Trump was coming through based on the security. I mean,
Belichick was there. I didn't notice.
I thought
didn't notice.
Was.
I thought everybody
was the rumor
was,
anyway.
I thought everybody was there for Manny Diaz and Dave Dorn. I thought that's why everybody was there.
Yeah. Before I get into this though, you know what people are saying, right? I don't know if you and Joe have talked about this on your YouTube show or not. The Panthers just have to complete the part of the triangle. I mean, J-Lo's done her thing, Ohio State's done their thing, and now the Panthers open in Jacksonville once again, or play Jacksonville once again, I should say. 2015 they opened up on the road. 2003 was at home.
Coming off of bad years too.
Right.
So yeah, it's funny. We had somebody had put that on our radar, and we put that together, and it got picked up by Pardon My Take, and they added the J-Lo portion of it.
Yes.
That to make this all work. So look, I was actually reading the Football Almanac this week, and I saw that the Panthers had a less than 1% chance of making the Super Bowl. I'm sure if I were to go on to DraftKings or any other wagering app right now, I'd probably get pretty good odds. $5 game.
I would think so.
I mean, it's just $5. I'll go without my fancy coffee for a day to put $5 down on the Super Bowl for the Carolina Panthers. Not that they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they'll get to the Super Bowl because that is what happens.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Bengals in 2021 with Joe Burrow. I mean, you just got to get hot.
Yes, but I do think that jokes aside, and I've been texting with my friends at WFNZ in Charlotte, the sports talk station in Charlotte, whether it's Walker Mell, who does noon to 3 with Wes Bryant, or Kyle Bailey, who does the afternoons.
Kyle Bailey, friend of the show. Yep.
I had texted Kyle today, actually, because as of this conversation, they had their joint practice with the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
And, there's 7-on-7 stuff. And because it's not open to fans this year, everybody's relying on the assembled media to relay what they had seen. And I'm listening as I'm driving around with my 14-year-old, taking him to some hockey stuff. And it's like breathless coverage over this practice. And I texted Kyle. I'm like, I know you're absolutely serious here, but please tell me that there's actual demand for this, and it's not you guys are just filling up airways. Because the way you're talking about this, you're almost treating it like you're talking about a real game of consequence that has occurred against the Cleveland Browns, not 7-on-7 drills, or it's not even 7-on-7 drills. The whole point of practice is that you can take some chances and somebody drops a pass and it's not the end of the world. It was, well, what's the context of the pass? Were they trying to stretch it out? Were they trying to work on some timing against other competition during practice? I mean, there's all sorts of context as to why somebody might drop a pass or why a ball might be intercepted.
Yeah.
And he said, dude, there is nonstop demand for this stuff. we're looking at what happened last year, and it's something that Giglio and I talk about all the time. We talked about this last year, that the win for the Panthers last year was that they just looked like any old average bad team rather than the worst team
Right.
with zero things to be optimistic about, right?
Yep.
So what I'm afraid of when we talk about the Panthers and we get so hyped up about how things went and some semblance of a pulse is like, let's slow down and like be realistic about where they are in this rebuild. And that the old saying, they're 2 years away from being 2 years away. There's no bona fide superstars in that wide receiver group. There's a lot of promise. Xavier Leggett has a lot of things that he has to figure out. Conditioning, drops, those are things that are kind of yellow flags for Leggett. As excited as people can be about some 7-on-7 action with Tedero McMillan, again, he's a rookie. We'll see what happens when an actual defense gets on the field and it's not 7-on-7 drills. I get that Jalen Coker was a bit of a folklore, urban legend and how he came on there late. But I mean, if that's what you're relying on to be a superstar wide receiver or be a highly productive guy, kind of tells you about the group that he's working with, right? Including a reclamation project in Hunter Renfrow or an aging Adam Thielen.
Correct.
So I say all these things not to be pessimistic, because I know we live in a weird age now where saying something is okay or saying that, hey man, they'll be all right, is now viewed as being a hater, being negative, or anything like that. No, they're just going to be okay. If you look at the history of the Panthers over the last couple of years, they've had a lot of 5-win seasons coming out where you're thinking, hey man, they can turn this thing around, only to not, right? So I just hope that we don't work ourselves into this lather based on what we've seen out of 7-on-7 drills or some clips that we've seen on social media and what typically happens in the preseason news cycle, and then get mad when it didn't live up to what do the kids call it? The head canon, right? Like, well, you know, I thought that Luke Skywalker was going to do this in the movie, but he didn't. I had it built up in my head and it didn't happen. So therefore it's terrible. You kind of do this with your football teams too, where you develop this head canon over what these guys are and what they're not.
Right.
And we saw this locally in Raleigh. We saw this with the Carolina Hurricanes, the hockey team.
Oh yeah.
Where they went 10 years without making the playoffs, and people just kind of had this weird Stockholm syndrome with the players that were available. I mean, they were okay. They were fringe playoff teams that just didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
But you're like, we're just one thing away. No, you're not. You still need to get way better if you really want to make some noise. And I think that's where we're at with the Carolina Panthers. I think the best part about it, though, I will say about this, if we're going to be positive about the Carolina Panthers, we're not obsessing over Bryce Young. We are talking about the things that do matter in Charlotte, and that is getting better at the skill position, and more importantly, the defense being better than the worst freaking defense we have seen.
Let me get into that. Okay, so we already talked about the joint practice with the Browns. You just talked about that. Do you have any takeaways from training camp the last few weeks that you have seen or have been texting around? And then kind of with that, with the Browns, and what are you looking for this preseason? Obviously, health, yes, but
you just said it. You just said it.
Yeah,
you just said it. It's health. I mean,
okay.
I know what Panther fans are thinking. Was it J.C. Horn was in an accident today?
Yeah, that was in my notes. Yeah,
right. Like, I mean, are you serious?
It's like Dalton.
Another car accident. I mean, remember, Cam Newton almost died
on 11 years ago. That's right. Yeah.
On a very dangerous intersection around. I mean, all these things seem to happen around the arena. Maybe they should. We're so focused on, hey, does Bank of America Stadium need a retractable roof? How about easier ways to get in and out of the stadium? I don't know. I mean, given some track record here with the accidents, right? So thankfully, all jokes aside, everybody's safe, everybody's okay. But when you see a headline like that coming out of your Panthers beat writers, whether it's Mike Kay at the Charlotte Observer or Joe Person at the Athletic, that man, here you have this guy who just reworked this extension and he's in a car accident. Like, geez, man, what is going on? Especially when they had so many injuries last year. And I think that to me that's the story of the Panthers this offseason. can you start the year healthy and can you remain healthy? Rashes of injuries sometimes, man, sometimes you just snake bit, dude, and that's just the way the year is. And
Yeah,
historically, that is not something that will keep going for your team. Right?
correct.
Sometimes freak things happen. So let's see what this defense looks like when they're healthy, rather than what you saw, which was a mash unit as the season progressed last year. Well, Derek Brown, and all that kind of stuff. So let's hope everybody's healthy.
Yeah. I was actually I was there in New Orleans week 1 for that shellacking and seeing Derek Brown go down. So not exactly the best game day experience there in the
No,
Bayou last year, but at
no.
least you had the bourbon, the beers, and the good food to kind of salt it away a little bit there. Uh, what is your thought on I wasn't gonna go here first, but I'll go here first. You just mentioned the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Are you pro Ajero Avero? Are you, I don't want to say anti because you don't want to be anti anybody. Are you think he can just like, is this a make or break year? Like,
Yes, it
because,
is. Yes.
well, okay, here's how I think this is how people are going to phrase it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They either like this is my opinion. The offense, I think we know if Bryce Young can be what he was the last Denver game on of last year, kind of the last
Mm-hmm.
8 games, and solid, taking that next step. We know what we're going to get from the offense, I think, as a whole. But the defense, instead of being 32nd in the league in most categories, if they're like 22nd, 20th, 18th,
Yeah.
something like that, I think we'll be okay. But now here's my question. Does Avero do so good that he all of a sudden leaves for a head coaching job, which was the noise like 2 years ago, and everyone's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Or does he do really good, but doesn't get any head coaching traction, but then he leaves anyway because he either he just doesn't want to come back to Carolina, or the Panthers are like, good job, we got better, but we can still find
Yeah,
something better. Let's
I
play
don't
it.
know why people I don't know why people get obsessed with the potential losing. Like, if you're ready for him to go now, then why would you be upset if another team decided to give him a head coaching job or something
Correct.
like that? Hey man, buyer beware. I'll use Ben Johnson as a prime example of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I have one of our corporate champions, who I've known for a very, very long time. He's a friend of mine as well. Is Gordon Miller. He's a Detroit Lions fan. He is loving the fact that Ben Johnson gets to just be exposed now. You see what I'm saying? So I don't. I'm not quite sure I'm following the fretting, other than what fans fretting about what the defensive coordinator could do or not do if they have a good season. You want them to be good.
Right.
I mean, that's the
Exactly.
bottom line.
Yeah.
If he leaves for another job, hey man, it's the NFL. Let him, let
Right.
him be upwardly mobile. There's any number of other defensive coordinators you can go and try and find.
Right.
So with Evero, it's tricky because you have to deal with a couple of things. We just talked about the injuries.
Yep.
They also, beyond the injuries, in order with the previous general manager, not Dan Morgan, with Scott Fitterer,
Mhm.
they were, Mr. In on every deal, the Panthers
Yep.
fans who went with the laser eyes. And no, they gave up a lot of freaking talent. Okay. A lot of talent. So, and he also combined that with the owner who wants to run a particular defense because, well, that's what I saw when I was in Pittsburgh. Right.
Right.
So there's a lot of layers as to why the defense has been bad or was bad.
Yeah.
Let's see if they can turn it around, and then we can have this conversation. I mean, I'll just read this directly from Mike Tanier, who does a newsletter called Two Deep Zone. It's on Substack. Mike's been a long time NFL writer. He does the Aaron Schatz Football Almanac,
Mhm.
which is a very, very great piece of preseason material if you really want to deep dive into some of this stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to read directly from Mike's notes related to the defense. Opponents produced 83 explosive runs against the Panthers defense in 2024. No other defense allowed more than 70. Opposing ball carriers avoided 110 tackles against the Panthers defenders, also the highest figure in the league. The Panthers defense will be better this year, but it's worth noting just how terrible it was, right? And I can go down any number of, if you're into like DVOA, it used to be Football Outsiders was the name of the website. Now
Yep.
it's the Fantasy
Yeah.
Network with
Fantasy.
what
Yep.
shots.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And they do this thing called DVOA. I'm not going to get into the math of it other than number good, number bad
Yeah.
based on their metrics, right?
Essentially. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really like I'm smart enough to understand a good number and I'm smart enough to understand what a bad number is, right? And when you look at the Panthers and where they were in terms of rushing DVOA, which is essentially their version of like wins above replacement kind of a thing, right? They were 31st. I'm sorry, last in rushing. They were 31st in passing. They were 27th in adjusted sack rate, 30th at stopping their number one receivers, opponents' number one receivers, last in adjusted line yards, right? So I bring all this up to say two things. One, yeah, Evero has a lot of pressure on him this year. I don't see how he couldn't have a lot of pressure. David Tepper's not going to move on from Dave Canales after they've gone through so many head coaches, right? Because if you move on from Canales, you then really run into the danger of truly not being able to get a coach who wants to work there. Canales basically kind of took a flyer on the Panthers job, right? So you're running into that problem. What are you going to throw up Dan Morgan as a sacrificial lamb? Yes, by all means, let's go ahead and fire a beloved Panther guy who's saying all the right things. And on top of that, based on what we've seen so far to Dan Morgan, has been pretty competent. They haven't done anything dumb, which in Pantherland is actually a step up given the previous administrations,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So when you're starting to do the math here, and if something's not working out, the fact that he even came back, right, was a surprise. So yeah, man, right out of the gate, if that defense and they're healthy and they suck, they're going to be moving in a different direction.
Why do you think?
That to me is the biggest storyline going into the start of the season
Do,
is the defense and the defensive coordinator.
That's fair. Do you feel like when you say, just for people who may be confused by your statement, do you feel like it was a surprise that he came back because he didn't have any other options? Or do you feel like he wanted to kind of right the wrong, if you will, from last year and kind of prove to people he doesn't suck as a defensive coordinator?
I am surprised that Tepper, given his track record,
Oh, I see.
did
Okay.
did not push to fire him.
Got it.
And he would have been justifiably fired based on
Got it.
all the stats I just gave you.
Yep.
Injuries aside.
Sure.
I mean, I get it, but injuries happen everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
And
Yeah.
now they're taking some gambles on, at least it looks like they've shuffled some stuff around to potentially get better, but we shall see.
Well, Mike Kay, who you referenced earlier, he was famous last year and really the year before as well for saying that this roster was very top heavy. There was not a lot of depth for the
No.
last couple of years. And I don't think people realized that. And when Derek Brown went down, that just that was probably about the worst thing that could have happened to that team last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it exposed the lack of depth. So anyway, let's get into kind of some more nuts and bolts. Kind of taking. Let's not talk about the preseason. I'm boring myself with this. Week 1 versus Jacksonville Jaguars, and kind of the season as a whole. But really, let's just focus on Jacksonville. I mean, Travis Hunter versus Ted McMillan. You have Trevor Etienne, Travis Etienne, the brothers. You've got Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young. You've got Liam Cohen versus Dave Canales. Storylines galore here. And so, what are you looking for in week 1 against Jacksonville? Obviously, everyone wants to win, but what are you looking for specifically come week 1 versus Jacksonville? And what do you expect? I'm not telling you to predict the game, but like, what do you expect to happen?
Well, I think there's two things that I fully expect for the Panthers out of the gate. And that is whatever happens will not be about the Panthers. It's going to be about the other team. It's going to be a carryover of what we saw last year with, hey, man, they hung with the Chiefs. Well, what does that mean? Well, clearly the Chiefs are falling off. There's no way they're getting in the Super Bowl. They're going to get knocked off. We saw how that worked out. Oh, they hung with the Eagles. Wow, here we go again. The Eagles, it's all smoke and mirrors. There's no way they're going to do this. Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat. Well, they go on, they win the Super Bowl, right? So when the Panthers did so, and then heck, I had this stat with me last year, but I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But of the teams that they beat down the line, somebody got fired every time they beat that team, whether it was
Yes.
a head coach or a
Giants.
coordinator.
Yep.
Right? It was, I think, the Giants, the Saints,
Falcons.
yeah, the Falcons. Like somebody either got fired or they got demoted or
Right.
something like that, right? So it became again. There's like that meme with the Grim Reaper going door to door, and that was the Panthers for a lot of these NFL teams, right? So I say all this to establish that the Jaguars are yet another real easy game for people to focus on them rather than the Panthers. Because really, what's the national talking point with the Panthers? So it's going to be about Travis Hunter, right? Like, hey, man, I would have loved to have seen Travis Hunter with the Panthers if they could have made that work. But how is he going to two-way this, blah, 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 blah. And of course, the biggest one, Trevor Lawrence, this prince who was promised. How's he producing? In the same way that people have started to kind of turn on Justin Herbert a little bit. You keep telling us there's going to be this thing, but where are the results to go with it? So that to me is what's going to happen with the Jaguars. The Panthers could win that game, and nobody's going to talk about the fact that they won. So I say this to set expectations for Panthers fans this year that you will not be a national conversation point. You will not be of any interest to what's going on nationally in the NFL and the discourse around it. And it's going to take a couple of years for that to be a factor for the Panthers. So get used to nobody giving you credit if you win, nobody giving you credit for a perceived moral victory or looking like you've turned some sort of corner around or that Bryce Young looks pretty competent or whatever it is. It's going to be about the other team for a hot minute. So just kind of buckle in for that. The other thing that I am looking for going into Jaguars actually starts now. One thing that bothered me last year, and this actually is something that goes multiple coaching staffs, but specifically with Dave Canales and why he got hired to work with Bryce Young, I felt last year that he hid Bryce Young in the preseason, that there was something going on. It's like obviously there's only 32 of these jobs, so Dave Canales is going to say all the right things when he gets the job.
Correct.
Okay. Well, part of the sell was, hey man, look at the quarterbacks I've worked with, and look what I've done with them. Right? You get the Geno Smith thing, the Baker Mayfield thing. All right, well, I'm gonna do this with Bryce. He's a big reason why I'm here. I already got enough tape. I know what I'm gonna work with. All that kind of stuff. You can say all those things, but once you actually sit down and you start working with that person, you might be like, ugh, yeah, I don't know if I can work with this person. But this is something that happens in just about any line of work. It'd be like going into business with a friend. Like, oh man, we should do this thing. It's gonna be great. And then you actually start working with that person and you realize, oh no, they have terrible work habits, or oh no, this is not going to end well. And I got the sense last year that Dave Canales went through that moment of, yeah, I've seen some tape. I can work with this guy. And then he gets there and it's like, ooh, man, I don't know. So they kind of hid Bryce Young in the preseason because I don't think they had confidence in Bryce Young in the preseason. And of course, I was kind of proven right, given how everything started up. And they went to Andy Dalton, and there was no real urge to go back to Bryce Young. And look, we can massage the narrative however you want to massage the narrative last year, but let's not misremember that the only reason why Bryce Young was given another opportunity was because of a car accident with Andy Dalton. So I say all this,
but he took full advantage after that car accident.
That is a credit to Bryce Young. I'm
Correct.
not convinced that there was some great master plan that they were going along with to get him back and revitalize himself. No, it took Bryce Young to seize the moment and earn the Dave Canales trust back to open up the playbook a little bit more and let things cook. And he didn't look like he was, deer in the headlights kind of stuff. All right, so if you have all this stuff to work with and you've got new pieces and you want more out of Leggett, you're trying to get this Hunter Renfrow thing off the ground again, and obviously you got T-Mac or Nalo or however he wants, whatever nickname you want to use. I prefer Nalo. Okay, let's see this in the preseason. Don't hide it, man. We know what Andy Dalton is. He doesn't need the reps, man. He is a crusty veteran backup quarterback that you can go to. So start working on that now. Go beyond the 7-on-7. Go beyond these joint practices. Go beyond the secret scrimmages and all the other stuff that's going on. I want to see this in the preseason in actual snaps against other starters for as long as you possibly can, because that they cannot afford a slow start, especially on the
Well,
road.
you won't
They
be seeing
cannot.
that on Friday. I think most of the Browns starters will not be playing. I think Stefanski said so. You won't be seeing that at least on Friday.
Yeah, but that doesn't keep Dave Canales from going out there and playing his guys for a
Oh,
couple of
correct.
series. I
Yeah.
don't I don't want to see I don't want to see Bryce Young and these wide receivers and Chuba Hubbard, who's now going to be the main guy, right? I don't want to see that for 3 series and then your night's done. I don't want to see that. I want to see more work, and then you can take that third preseason game off. But in the first two, I want to see some work. That's what I'm looking for.
So you're thinking like a quarter and a half of work?
Quarter work. That would
Quarter
work
work.
for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Um, Speaking of players, who do you have taking that next step this year for the Panthers if you had to pick one person on offense and one on defense?
So I would say on the offensive side of the ball, it has to be Leggett.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
like that.
if we're talking a lot of promise, and depending on who you ask, yeah, you're gonna deal with some drops or some rookie stuff. Let's never forget that what was it? Jamar Chase was somebody who was everybody was convinced, oh, he forgot how to catch balls,
Right.
right? That's we know that's not the
Yeah,
case with
not.
Xavier Leggett. It comes down to, and the reason why I would love him to take a step up is that the one thing that the Panthers have also lacked, since we're kind of reminiscing about 10 years of that Super Bowl run, the Panthers need somebody that they can put their arms around, a great personality that makes it fun to watch. And,
Yeah.
Leggett was a representative for the Kentucky Derby. Good stuff.
Oh, great stuff.
During the Canes playoffs run, he was
He
at a
was there.
game
Uh-huh.
and he was the star, man. I mean, he was mic'd up. It was great content. Now we need all that personality that Panther fans have been begging for. Somebody fun to watch, somebody that you can put your arms around, but you got to back it up with performance. You got to back it up with a commitment to this opportunity that you have in the NFL. So I mean, maybe bringing on T Mac kind of pushes them there. Maybe bringing in these other dudes, whether it's a veteran like Moore or Hunter Renfro, whatever it is, to kind of push him along too, to actually give him a challenge. Hopefully he steps up, because you would rather have homegrown cheap wide receiver talent than playing the game of throwing the bag at a Tyreek Hill or something like that. That is not the game for the Carolina Panthers as they're in the process of this rebuild. Save that money to get better on defense. Okay. See if you can actually get some homegrown wide receiver talent on the cheap here for the next couple of years. So I would say Leggett is the obvious choice on the offensive side of the ball.
And then do you have a guy on defense?
Healthy. That's the guy. His name is Health. I mean, honestly, it's really what it is. Like, I know, as we just illustrated when we talked about, and I'm not trying to be obtuse about this when we talk about specific players or whatnot. It's just tough to get a read as to what this defense is, or who
Sure.
needs to be good, or who needs to step up. I mean, to
Yep.
me, it's just a matter of just be available. I mean, that's really what it is for me. Just be available, and then
Fair.
we can take a proper assessment of how good or how bad this defense might be.
Yeah. Really quick because it's kicking. Do you have a thought about the kicking
Kicking,
competition?
kicking.
Yeah.
Now, see, Ryan, this is when we get into. I would suggest you go outside and you touch grass. That's when we start getting into kicker battles, or I know that one of the big things that has been coming out of camp too is at center, right? And I say this, and I only say this because I've been doing this for a long time, man. And sometimes you just got to cop to the fact that, man, I don't know. Like, I'm going to trust the coaching staff on
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
I like the people who are paying attention to the kickers are the coaches. Even if fans were available to go to these types of things, they are not watching the kickers. So
No.
I am not going to BS people as though I'm like, well, I saw this social media clip, and I'm telling you what. No, not the case. Same with the center. Like, I am not sophisticated enough of a football person
That's fair.
ever, especially when it comes to that side of the ball, man. I mean, you watch enough football, and like you go to Pro Football Focus, right? And they're like giving you all these offensive line grades and all that stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna take you for it, man, because I'm still a a rudimentary football person, like I'm watching the ball all the time. I'm not watching the offensive line.
Exactly.
I can tell when something blows up, obviously,
Of
right?
course.
Like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness,
Yeah.
it's like you picked the right play on Tecmo Super Bowl, right? Like, oh man, there's a catastrophic, like, oh man, Bryce Young is running around for his life. Like, I get that part, but
Right.
you start getting into the nuances and the techniques. I'm like, man, salute to you. I'm going to take your word for it on that.
All right. That's fair. Um,
How about this kicker battle? Just make the kicks.
there you
That's
go.
my
That's
that is my
Well, Eddie Pinheiro
that,
did that, except for extra points, and then they
yeah,
ran him out of
yeah.
town. Then they ran him out. That's okay.
Hey, look,
I'm a
it's like
Florida guy, so me and Eddie,
I see, I
won't
see, I see.
we won't go there.
It's funny. Kickers, college kickers, and goalies, hockey goalies. It's voodoo, man. It's voodoo.
Yeah,
You know
we'll keep it moving. What are we not talking enough when it comes to the Panthers? What are we not
what are,
talking about enough?
what are we not talking about enough? I I would go back to the start of our conversation. I don't think we're talking enough about what exactly we saw at the end of the year, right? Like, who was it that they beat along the way? The fact that it took multiple overtimes and a lot of things to break their way, is that sustainable? And again, I don't bring this up in the context of trying to be a party pooper here. I'm simply bringing this up to challenge folks to go back and reassess what we actually saw
Yeah.
rather than get so caught up in the moral victories of it all. So I don't think we're talking enough about what realistically it is that we saw. I also don't we talk, and I'll spin this in a more positive way. The city of Charlotte right now is in a really bad spot in terms of sports fandom, right? And people thought I was being facetious when I said go out and celebrate a Charlotte Hornets NBA Summer League championship. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
I remember you saying that. Yeah, I remember you
I
saying
was
that.
being serious. I was being absolutely serious. And I'm glad that the Hornets went out and they made shirts to
I was
to
too.
commemorate to
Yeah.
commemorate. Now, I don't know about charging $48 for a shirt, but hey,
Yeah,
you
that's
know
not.
what? I mean, I know what the NBA TV deal is, man. You ain't struggling. Come on now. But 48 bucks for a shirt and they sold out, right? You can make fun of that. I choose not to. I think what's being under discussed is I think Charlotte does not the area of Charlotte does not get enough credit for people who are they just want something to be happy about. They just want to put their arms around something. The fact that they sold out of shirts in a couple of hours for the NBA Summer League should tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that, as we get back to the start of the conversation, where there's breathless coverage over 7-on-7 drills on sports talk radio, shows you there is a thirst, there is a desire. The worst thing that can happen in any town is apathy. Okay. And I think what we're seeing with the optimism is that the apathy truly has not set in. I've seen it set in professional settings. I've seen it here locally with the Carolina Hurricanes when they went 10 years without making the playoffs. Apathy set in. Nobody was going to the games. The topic of the Canes was just buried with all the other things. I would get complaints on the radio if we talked about the Canes. Like, why are you wasting your time talking about this? They're not any good. Spend more time talking about something else, right? So I'll give Panthers fans credit for not having crossed over into the apathy portion of it. That doesn't mean you can't be skeptical. That doesn't mean you can't question David Tepper. It doesn't mean there's a lot of other things that you can do as a fan. That doesn't even mean you went to the game, right?
Right.
Because it's expensive. I still think there's a little bit of a threshold of I'm still going to kind of hold off and wait a little bit before I actually spend my money on going to games. But that doesn't mean that people have checked out of
Right.
engaging with the Panthers. I've seen that happen. It's bad. It's ugly. That has not happened with the Panthers, and I think Panthers fans do deserve credit. I don't think it's being discussed enough. They're not going to be talked about nationally, and people are going to make fun of the Panthers and all that stuff like, do fans exist? No, fans exist. They do. They're just doing what fans should be doing in that they're being optimistic, they're engaging, but they're also holding themselves back a little bit before they truly throw money behind it. That's the next step. Now, you do that and you sustain and you win, which has been something historically the Panthers have struggled to do. Again, I've seen this here locally with the Carolina Hurricanes in that after 2019, they had their new identity, the bunch of jerks. They start consistently making the playoffs. Now, you know what? There's 18,000 a night for random Tuesdays against San Jose, right? And that building's packed throughout the playoffs, and there's general interest in the offseason. But it took a while to get all that stuff back. So hopefully
Agreed.
it's not too far gone for the Panthers. And I do think that Panthers fans have done a good job of kind of holding that torch lit still, just waiting for them to be rewarded. We'll see if that actually starts happening this season.
Yeah. I was going to do a 53-man roster prediction with you. I'll decide to keep going. We'll keep it moving on that one. The roster is so far from being set. I know it's like 5 to 6 players, but we'll keep it moving on that one. I want to go with actually, and before we get to some predictions and kind of some kind of lightning round, if you will. What
Yeah.
is something that we haven't talked about or haven't covered that you want listeners to kind of know about this Panthers team come 2025 that, something maybe I haven't asked you about? What is something that you want, like if you were just talking right now on your podcast right now, what is something that maybe you want fans to know about that I haven't discussed?
Oh, what, the Panthers specifically?
Yeah, with the Panthers.
Um,
Any topic that I maybe haven't discussed that you want people to know that they
I
should
think,
know about?
I mean, the thing that I would be most curious about is um, Canales and his endless optimism, right?
Yep.
The curiosity last year, you can do this for a very long time to become very cynical and jaded about stuff. And the one thing that I kind of was curious about as the season looked like it was going off the rails and they were going to have a terrible, no good year, was just like how much can Canales keep up with this optimism, right? What is genuine? What is just putting on a front and all that kind of stuff. I say this in that I think Canales. I don't think we're talking enough about or curious enough about the growth of Canales and how he presents himself to the media, what he is with his players versus what he is at the podium. I think he learned a lot last year in how he talked about something on a Sunday and then how he talked about something on a Monday.
Mm,
He stepped in it a couple of times last year, and
right.
how he said something on a Sunday immediately after the game, and then had to kind of catch
Backtrack.
himself the next
Exactly.
day, right?
Yeah.
Or how he sometimes would like kind of, I mean, especially with Bryce Young, right? You got to remember there were times where he was talking about Bryce Young as though he was like a practice squad guy that, remember without Andy Dalton, well, I had to get Andy out of there because I was afraid he was going to get hurt. You put a quarterback in there that's not the overall number one pick in the draft that you made a bunch of moves to go up and get, right? You know, I would expect that with the XFL Mahomes, not Bryce Young. Okay. Was it with PJ Walker, right?
Oh, PJ Walker, yes.
Yeah. So like
Oh,
if
good
it, if
times.
it, if you're throwing PJ Walker out there because you don't want Andy Dalton to get crushed in a blowout, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of what PJ Walker's there for. Not Bryce Young, man, but he was treating him like that, like a practice squad guy. I think he learned some lessons on that. So the question that I have, and I think the thing that we have to kind of keep an eye on is, yeah, man, he can say things like the sky's the limit for this squad. I mean, that's what Dave Canales is going to say. But once we start getting into the thick of it, and there's going to be some frustrating moments because, hey, man, that's football. How does Canales handle it now? What did he's never going to tell you because he's very focused on his overall optimism and how he presents himself. But I know you got to know that he probably adjusted or learned. I should probably not say that. Maybe I should hold that back, all that kind of stuff. How he handles it from the jump this year. Because they're going to go through some adversity this year. Like let's not act like they ain't going through some adversity. They might win 5 more. They might win another 5 or 6 games this year. We could say it's objectively a better year, but still almost have the same win total in terms of how it goes about it. Well, how does Canales go about it? How does he handle it? How does he handle negativity? How does he keep pushing through? Also, more importantly, how does that message not get stale? Because after a while, relentless positivity can be grating. So I'm really curious in the evolution of Canales as a head coach and how the messaging works for him
Yep.
whether it's for the players or even to the fans and the media.
Let's finish up with some lightning round predictions, if you will, kind of this or that, or what if statements, if you will. Most impactful rookie on offense, Ted McMillan or Jimmy Horn Jr.?
It'll be McMillan. I think where he was drafted, what we've seen so far, his infectious personality, he has the potential to be a star. I think he has a potential to be a star. But again, keyword potential.
Correct.
So I'm gonna go with Nalo.
um, Defensive rookie with the most impact.
Defensive rookie with the most impact. Oh, geez, man. Now you're going to make me go through the.
So you got Nick Scorton, Latham Ransom, Princely, Amumielen. Those are the three.
No, it
Jackson.
was no. It was Rantham.
Latham Ransom. Yep, safety.
Yep.
I so okay, my Florida bias is going to show, but
Okay.
my other podcast that I host with former NFL tight end Ben Sherp winning the division. For those out there who have not listened yet, rate, review, subscribe. Ben and I talk about Princely all the time. Princely
Okay.
played at Florida, then he played at Ole Miss. Guy's got a great first step, and he's got some things to work out. Maturity wise, that's kind of why he left Florida and kind of matured a little bit at Ole Miss, and now he's obviously in the draft, or in the NFL. But he's got a great first step. I think he's going to have an impact rookie season. Dare I say, he might be the best defensive end, best pass rusher on this team by the end of the year.
Okay.
I think he is going to be a hit for this team.
Now, look, Ryan, I'll apologize on that. I'll apologize on my behalf for that because it's funny. I've been so focused on the offensive side of the ball for the Panthers, and then on top of that, because where we are and what we're doing with NC State and Carolina and Duke and stuff like that, it's just like it's just one of those things where like every so often I'll have to go back and like remind myself like I said, like I don't have. It's funny, like I don't have the roster.
They drafted 3 Florida players this year. I mean, Cam Jackson, Trevor Etienne, and Princely. So
I'm sorry, they're not Georgia players. That's how you win Super Bowls.
Well, Trevor was technically Georgia for a year.
Fair.
One Georgia player.
Fair.
Who is going to have the better statistical season this year? Chuba Hubbard or Bryce Young?
Well, I mean, logically, it's going to be Chuba.
Okay.
I mean, if you believe that they want to run the ball and how he's going to be a featured back, I get all that kind of stuff. Then it's going to be Chuba. And and honestly, if the Panthers are having a good season, it'll be Chuba. I just don't think that with Bryce Young, he's going to give you stats that are going to wow you. When you go back and you look at what was considered his best games, I mean, what are we talking about? Maybe he had 235 yards, right? Like he wasn't going to just completely show out. And let me put it this way. Bryce Young if you have to take Bryce Young as a fantasy QB, you're going to be doing whatever it is the last place bet wager is. You'll be 24 hours at a Waffle House if he's your QB in fantasy, right? I think what you're just looking at in terms of Bryce is just competency, right? Not looking overwhelmed, having just decent operator games. It's a separate conversation about Bryce Young, about that's not what an overall number one pick is or should be. Cool. I'm here for that conversation, but I feel that's an old conversation. Now you're just looking to see if you can get anything out of Bryce and not have to go back to because the worst thing that can happen for the Panthers is you have to go back to the drawing board and start over again with a QB. If you're there, things have gone very, very wrong. So you're just hoping that he can just keep it competent, be an operator, not overwhelm you with statistics, just not really screw it up and look overwhelmed himself. So that's why Chuba is the obvious answer here.
Derek Brown, J.C. Horn. Well, one of them. Well, I'll start here. Health wise, with obviously both of them with their injuries, who's going to play more games this season between the two of them? And on top of that, will either of them be named to? I'm not going to say Pro Bowl. Will any of them be an All Pro this year? Either of those guys be an All Pro?
Well, I mean, given how the Pro Bowl usually works, you never know. You and I might get called up to a Pro Bowl
You're right. You're right.
when everybody opts out and everything else like that. I will say Derek Brown is the most likely to be fully healthy the whole year and to at least make some sort of, you never know. Pro
Yeah.
Bowl, sky's the limit, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
all pro. I see what
Yeah.
you're getting with that. I'm going to go with
Okay.
Derek Brown on that one.
All right. And then lastly, we'll kind of just look really quick at the season as a whole. Am I crazy to think that this team can compete for the seventh spot in the NFC, the wild card? Am I crazy to think that?
Yes. Yeah. Short answer, yes.
Okay. Tell me why. The schedule is third easiest in the NFL. The opening 4 games are very winnable.
I get it.
You
I
get it
get
off to a
it.
fast start, like you said. There's going to be
I
games they're going to lose, like
look.
Rams, Bills,
I
Niners. Like I get it.
I understand that you always have a team that goes from worst to first in their division and all that kind of stuff. And I know you're asking if they could just be a
Well, we
wild
were
card. I get all
third,
that.
but I know what you're trying to say. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I get all that stuff. I get all that stuff. The reason why I think that's crazy
yeah. Okay.
is because it gets back to really, if you take anything from my appearance on your podcast today, it's that y'all slow the fuck down. Okay.
Okay.
Like just slow down. All right. Because last year was very razor thin margins on, I mentioned, like I've been in prep mode for college here, Duke and State and Carolina and whatnot. So some of my Panther stuff, I apologize, is a little on the fuzzy side
Yeah,
as
we're
as we
we're
get.
both prepping for ACC. I'm
Yeah, so
multitasking.
so
Yep.
a little fuzzy there. I'm getting older now, and things don't they don't fire off as quickly as they used to. But let's look at Duke. Okay, I'm going to use Duke as an example for Carolina. They were 6-1 last season in one score games. Okay, and I'm the sicko who watches a lot of Duke football for work, right? And there was some fortunate bounces, but they were also a team that lost a game in which they had like a +6 turnover margin against SMU, right? So what I'm getting at is twofold. Football's weird,
It
and
is.
just because you manage to get out on the right side of a one possession game or a one score game doesn't mean that's you can repeat that. You can't replicate that. It's a lot like Turner. I mean, we talked to Manny Diaz about this at ACC kickoff, and of all the people who would know about the sustainability of turnover margin, it's Manny Diaz. I mean, he's the guy who gave you the turnover chain at Miami. And in 2017, they get to the ACC championship and they get smoked by Clemson because their turnover luck finally ran out. Okay. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. They had turnover luck. You cannot count on turnover luck year to year. That's just not a thing. It's not sustainable. That's not to say that you can't create opportunities for turnovers,
Sure.
but the ball is shaped funny and it bounces different ways. And just because it bounced one way that one time, don't mean it'll bounce that way the next time. Okay.
Right.
So I say that to say that much like Duke could have a just as good of a year, but have a worse record because going 6-1 in one possession games or one score games might not go that way that time. So I go and I challenge people to go back and watch or look again, re-examine those games and see how close it was to disaster and how things had to break their way. Turnovers, fortunate field position after that all you have to do is get out of there with a field goal. I mean, as we talked about kickers earlier, that's not always the case. You're talking about Pinheiro, right? So I would simply say that while there's a lot of optimism to see that they looked somewhat competent, just understand how razor thin that margin was. Or on top of that, as much as you might be hype about the fact that they played closely against Kansas City, that they played closely against Philadelphia, as I was reading up one preview last week, they went deep dive into just how little they flexed on Bryce Young. It's like they did not take the Panthers seriously, right?
Yep.
I mean, these are teams that are looking at bigger picture, right? They're not going to empty out the playbook defensively on Bryce Young because at that point, why should they have to? We're going to save that for a bigger game, right?
Though I do
And
think
then
Steve Spagnuolo zero blitzed Bryce Young a couple times just to see what he would do. That did
but
happen a few times.
it did happen. You're right. But again, these
Defensively
are
speaking, yes.
defensively speaking. I get that, but I still think, in a way, you're kind of agreeing with me here that they didn't do all the things with him, right?
Of course, of
They
course.
didn't do all because they knew they didn't have to. Why would you? And then maybe they got a little surprised, like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't realize we're going to be here. So that's why I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I just don't. Now, could they be knocking on the door? Could they look more like all those things? Like that's what I'm looking for. I am going into this season way more pragmatic than
So,
most of the talk.
so what is a successful 2025 season for you, record wise, or just don't even have to give me a record? Just what does that look like for Joe Ovies?
I'm not looking at record. I'm not looking at record. I am looking at game by game. If you wanted to focus on something last year to be positive, you look at it wasn't one big straight line up in terms of positive momentum for the Panthers, even with the
Oh
close
no,
losses.
yeah,
I mean, Dallas, right? I mean, I don't have, but they got smoked by Dallas. They got smoked by the Buccaneers during that stretch
they
too,
got
right?
smoked by Saints in Week 1.
Well, no. I'm talking about late.
Oh, late. I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm
not
sorry.
talking
Late.
about.
Got it. Got
I'm
it.
not
Okay.
talking about
I'm
early in
with
the
you.
season.
I'm with
I'm talking about when things looked like they were going in the right direction. They had some step back. Okay, one step forward, two step back. How do you respond after that? Well, after they got smoked by Dallas, I'm pretty sure. Again, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but they bounced back. Bryce had a pretty good game off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember here. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at overall record. I am looking at, okay, you lost. How do you bounce back from that? Are you getting smoked? That is not the sign of a team that's going in the right direction. When you go up against another bad team, are you actually taking care of business, or do you find yourself mired in the muck? You know, like getting back to the Duke example, they like to call it in the sewers. All right, well, if you do find yourself in the sewers in these games, which kind of tends to be the case oftentimes in the NFC South, all right, well, how do you perform in those games? Do you stay with it? Do you put yourself in position to win? But hey, man, you missed the kick. Shit happens, right? That's what I'm looking for with the Panthers this year, because I am looking at it once again in a much more pragmatic. This is an actual rebuild, and if David Tepper wants to get credit from me, if David Tepper wants to get credit from fans, they will actually treat it like a rebuild rather than trying to be like, oh my goodness, we look somewhat competent. All right, well now we're gonna do all these because that happened with Matt Rule. That happened. It's happened. So that to me is the sign of success for the Panthers. I know people don't like this, but I am adamant about this. Sometimes you just gotta go on vibes, dude. And right now, the Panthers are sustaining themselves on vibes. Just keep feeding those positive vibes, and then we can talk about where things might be headed in 2026, but not now.
Well, that is a good place to end it here on Inside the Vault. My guest today, once again, has been Joe Ovies from ONG Triangle Media and the such. Joe, before we get you out of here, where can people find you if they don't know and are living under a rock? And what are some projects and things you're working on that you can tell us about?
So, we've got the easiest last names to spell, Ovies and Giglio. So you can just look that up on YouTube. It'll come right up. I'm being sarcastic. Just we're on YouTube, we're on podcasts. You can search us up. We'll come up pretty quick. We cover mostly triangle sports. College obviously with State and Carolina and Duke, the Carolina Hurricanes, but the Panthers are obviously a big talking point for us as well, along with the rest of the NFL. In the summer we've been trying to do things a little bit differently, especially in 2025, taking this opportunity to look back in the last 25 years of triangle sports, right? And just kind of doing a thought experiment about how over the last 25 years, history doesn't repeat, it just rhymes. And if you think this particular story is like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening. This is wild. This is crazy. It's never any more than this. Well, we did that back in 03 when, Matt Doherty wanted to fight Chris Collins on the sideline, right? Or like, Carolina coaches like, oh, you know what? Carolina's being serious about football. Yes, just like they were being serious about football with Butch Davis. We saw how that worked out, right? So all of this is to kind of like help people either recontextualize things that we lived through, or what's more important to me is, younger fans having a better understanding of why things are the way that they are. Because I do think that if you want to better understand your favorite sports teams, history does matter with that context. That's why it's important, especially with the Carolina Panthers. It's important to talk about things like 2015. It's important to talk about um, Dan Morgan and what he meant and why that factors into what David Tepper might do. We see this with the Carolina Hurricanes all the time, where you have a lot of new fans who don't quite understand how things used to be in 2002 and how big of a deal it was for them to make the Stanley Cup, having not really had any success in the playoffs before that.
Right.
And also to appreciate a little bit more of how things used to be. And I think with Panthers fans, I think as we've gotten further away from 2015, you do realize, man, we had it pretty good. We, as much as I complained about Ron Rivera, or I might have complained about these things, they had good personalities, they had talent. Cam Newton put them on the map. They were talked about on ESPN. You don't realize how good you have it sometimes. So those types of things help contextualize what we're watching today, and we've been having some fun with that in the summer. But once we get into the midst of football season, yeah, man, it'll be talking about what we saw and taking, we take phone calls because everybody's forgotten what it's like to do a post game show with actual live phone calls, all that kind of fun stuff. So we're just bringing some stuff back and having some fun with it, man.
Awesome. Well, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. This has been Inside the Ball, episode 75 with Joe Ovies. We will see you guys next time.